Hi, and welcome to Sprout Chat, our monthly conversation with marketing professionals designed to share insights with our community. You're here with your hosts. I'm Joe Huber, the customer community strategist here at Sprout Social.
I'm Olivia Jepson, our social media specialist at Sprout.
And this month, we're talking all about the power of video storytelling on social. Our guest this month is Sierra Council. Sierra is a social media manager for documentary filmmakers. Hi, Sierra.
Hey, how's everybody doing today?
Good.
We're doing good over here.
Yeah, super excited to be here.
Good.
So every month we like to do an icebreaker, and since this month we have a super important question, what's your favorite kind of cookie?
Let's start with you, Sierra.
I was like, that's a great question. I would have to say chocolate chip, just because I grew up, my mom actually owned a bakery when I was a kid, and I feel like she really took pride in just some of the simple, easy things that we all love, sugar cookies, oatmeal raisin, chocolate chips, but she made them amazing. And so I feel like I've always just had a heart for the easy, simple chocolate chip cookie. So
I mean, that's a good one. That's chocolate chip is the classic. That's like the reigning king of cookies. Mine was the Magic Middles from the Keebler Elves. Now, I think they stopped making it about like 19, 20 years ago. So my favorite cookie is a discontinued cookie. But last year at Christmas, my wife and her friend made cookies that tasted exactly like the Magic Middles from Keebler. So they were amazing. I love it. So that's my new favorite cookie, I guess. So shout out to Bliss and Kiera.
My favorite are double stuffed Oreos, but I only eat them when I take like one side of the cookie off of each and make a double stuffed Oreo.
See, I think that's innovative.
Thank you. My whole family gets super mad at me for doing that because then I put the empty cookies back in the sleeves, and then they expect full Oreos, but really what they get is half.
Got it.
But then you can use those cookies for something else. Like that's the joy.
That's what I say.
Yeah, I agree. I think that that's exactly the same thing. So before we jump into Q1, I'm going to give us a nice little transition here because we're going to talk about ingredients, and cookies have a ton of ingredients. Let's talk a little bit about the ingredients to telling a story on social. So what are the key ingredients for telling a story on social?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that it's really important when trying to tell a story on social to just know your audience first and foremost. I think it's really just difficult to be able to get into what is a good story, how to tell the story, how to actually put the story together, put the pieces together when you don't really know who you're speaking to. And so I think, especially when it comes to social media, the different ways that you get to know your audience by analyzing data, trying different content, kind of just trying different things to be able to see what your audience is willing to engage with and what they're willing to comment on and share. All that information kind of helps to inform how you want to tell the story. And so once I think you get those pieces together and you kind of think about what story you think will really resonate with the people who are engaging with you, then I think it all kind of goes from there.
Yeah. Awesome.
And one thing, too, that we saw a lot on Twitter is creating a narrative through social content. And especially thinking more intentionally about these narratives through your brand identity. And so sort of leading into our next question, why is video content different from other forms of media?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say for me specifically, like I come from the world of production and filmmaking. So I think for me, like I've dabbled as a producer in audio and in different like forms of media, but I think video for me is just the way that, you know, you can kind of really bring people in on social media platforms. It both engages both your visual senses, senses, as well as the audio senses. It can kind of stimulate you as you're scrolling through the news feed. It kind of captures your attention and brings you in, especially if you're really able to capture people in those first 5 to 10 seconds. So I think video has this just magical capability to really draw you in to something deeper than other content that you may see on the platforms.
Yeah, obviously I love video. That's one of the things we're doing right now. One of the things you talked about though is how it just jumps out at you off the timeline. So when you're on Twitter, you're scrolling through and something starts moving, it really catches your eye, and things can kind of become a little, you're drawn in, like the content that you're speaking to, you're starting to have more of a conversation with the other person. And I think that it just really does like capture you in. So I love that part about video. I love exactly what you're saying there.
Yeah, and I also just want to add too, I think it's really important how you set up your video. Like I think depending on where you're coming from and what your background is, I always tell people like those first 3 to 5 seconds really matter. If you're kind of fading in from black and being very slow, you may not capture people as they're scrolling through the same way as someone that has really strong visuals, really strong colors. And also keeping in mind, I tell people all the time, like I still think we live in an age where people on social media scroll through with the sound off. And so visuals are super important. Like it's not just about like, capturing them with something that's, that you can hear, but also something that you can see as well. And then once you kind of bring them in, the rest of the video kind of helps keep them engaged and also captures their interest in who you are and what you do.
Yeah, and it's part of the Q3 here is being real, and how our question 3 is how can you ensure your content is authentic?
Yeah, again, a great question. I mean, I think it really, depends on how you want to determine authentic, right? Like, I think part of it, some of my favorite tips, just in general with ensuring authenticity, is just kind of being transparent and also engaging your community. It really does depend, though, on like what you're considering to be authentic. Is it authentic to the people who are engaging with you? And I guess in what way are you trying to be authentic? If you're like, I'm trying to tell a story that is real, that resonates, then in order to do that, one, you have to know what's real for the people who are engaging with you. You have to know what's real for your audience. And I think part of that, again, is going back to the data, going back to like what people respond to, going back to like what works for the community that you're trying to engage through your story. But then the other side of it is that if you're just trying to be authentic with your brand, show them the behind the scenes, like kind of just be transparent with who you are, what the process is, what you like are doing to even create the content. I think some people really just don't take advantage of the opportunity to show not just the end result, but the process as well. And I think when you show all of that through various forms of content over like, a period of time, it really kind of helps people bring them in for them to be able to trust you and trust that like, you're being really authentic with the stuff that you're producing.
Yeah. Definitely.
I think those are some really awesome tips, especially behind the scenes content. And I think another thing to keep in mind for those who might not work in film or have a video team is to think about how you can capture similar types of content through like store openings, external events that your company is doing, or even like internal team events, things like that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it's just important to be real. Like, I think at the end of the day, we sometimes forget when we're like marketing and advertising that like social media was originally kind of meant for real people to engage with other real people, right? And so it was meant to be friends sharing with friends about what they're doing and who they are. And I think when we get really too into like, what is our brand and what is our company, we forget that people really value just seeing other real people, whether that's through, like you said, like some of the like photos or capturing small moments, or I think someone maybe on Twitter mentioned like capturing the not cool as well as the cool. Like I love that because I think sometimes we only want to show people the best, but that's not real. And I think it's important to show all the different facets of like the work that you do, how you go about it, and how the story is getting told.
Definitely.
I also think too, like kind of going off of that, some of the most captivating ads for me on social are the ones that look like it's just a person in their room like doing their makeup or something. I think the one that's coming to mind right now is Glossier does this. Like I think in Instagram stories, and it literally almost looks like someone that you would follow that's just talking to the camera. And like I always intentionally or not tap back to those just because I think that it's not an ad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's actually a really great point. I mean, I think if we think about it, that's why like influencer and influencer marketing does so well sometimes, because influencers have really built their brand on just kind of showing the behind the scenes of who they are, that they're using Instagram stories to kind of capture the moments they wake up to when they go to bed. And because they're real, like we kind of fall in love with them a little bit more and kind of trust their ability to like tell us what to buy and what not to buy. But yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So kind of going into Q4 here, what are some of your best tips for building trust with your audience?
Yeah, this is my favorite. I think, no, it is. I mean, I think engagement and engaging communities is the core of what I do. Like I said, working with filmmakers, a lot of times my role as filmmakers are producing larger stories and larger narratives that are usually 30 minutes or 90 minutes long. My role, a lot of times, is to take the central issue of what they're building their long form story on and engage our communities online through shorter video. And so I think part of community engagement is building relationships and building trust. And I think we have to remember that trust and relationship building is two ways. It's not just one way. It can't just be us feeding information to other people. It's also allowing other people to feed information back to us through feedback and validating that we're hearing that feedback, that we are listening and we're responding accordingly. So I think that's a big piece that sometimes I do see that people are missing.
Yeah. And I mean, I love the idea of community building, obviously, as our customer community strategist. I'm pretty focused on that specific area of what we do. And we've been using things like video to not just run deep on like what we do, but how can we help you? How can we impact you? And I think for social, that's one of the things where we're talking about is use that video to reach out to people and like give them a reason to interact with that video. Give them something back, and that's what we're trying to do here with Sprout Chat. So what we try to do on some of our other social channels. With every video, we're always thinking about how can we make this of value to somebody else, because if you watch it, we want you to get something out of it. And whether that's a piece of knowledge or knowledge that you're not alone, we want you to get something out of that. We want you to feel something about that video. And so those are the things that we're talking about when we're talking about being real, being authentic, building trust, building community. All of those things that we do with that. We then have to measure how we're doing that. And that bleeds into question 5, which of course is which video metrics are the most important to look at. And I think this is something that everybody watching is going to want to hear your opinion on, Sierra.
Yeah, I definitely think number one, I always look at drop-off rates. Like, I think that's probably the first thing whenever we're pushing out short-form content, whether it's actually like episodic content or like doc series type content, or just like 3-minute previews or videos. I'm always looking at where do we lose interest. So if we're losing interest in the first 10 seconds or people are getting to a minute, at what point are they dropping off, and how do we reevaluate that to be able to keep them on a little bit longer? You never want to leave the crucial stuff to the end. You want to kind of, at least if you're not going to start with it, get it in that first 5 to 10 seconds. What is the point of this? Why am I watching? What am I getting out of this? If I have 1,000,001 people trying to feed me information and things every single day, why should I stop and watch this 1-minute video, 2-minute, or 3-minute videos? A lot of times also we use these drop-off rates for testing that we'll do like previews and different, like for ad campaigns and different things like that. And depending on where those, like where we kind of lose people, that kind of informs how we tell the larger story. And so I think that that's a big one. First and foremost. And then I think, again, as a person who really values like community and engagement, I also look at comments as well. Like these are the spaces where people will tell you either with straight out words or not commenting at all how much they really care about what you're putting out there. And I think that if you get if your point or your intentions, which I think is really important, like what is your intention with putting out the video? If it's to create dialogue or to get people to buy something or do something, how are people commenting and responding to that like underneath your video? And if they're not at all, like that's a sign too. And I think that's something to pay attention to.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, I think it also definitely depends on your goals. So like, for example, for our awareness efforts, we like to look at video views, but it's also important to learn and optimize based on some of those other metrics that you mentioned as well.
Yeah, I also will say too, because I think video views is something that comes up specifically for filmmakers a lot. Everyone's always trying to get like millions of views on things. But I think the problem is that, I mean, especially to me, I feel like nowadays, like you can buy views. I always tell people like you can buy views or just get like people to look at it. But if you can get people to stay and watch it, that's a whole other ball game. Like I think it's one thing to have 1 million people kind of be like, oh, like what's this? And just kind of happen to like view it really quickly because you paid Facebook to put it in front of you. It's another thing if they're willing to watch it to the end. Yeah. And then another thing on top of that, if they're willing to share it with their community and comment and engage on it. Like I think that says a whole lot about how your content resonated with your audience.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So moving on to Q6, how important is copy to video storytelling?
Yeah, copy I would say is definitely crucial. Like I think for me, I feel like sometimes we can only say but so much in a video, and we need to be able to provide context or give people some instruction on how you want them to engage with it, whether it's a question that you want people to answer or you want to like lead them to a next thing. So maybe it's, sometimes we'll do especially for filmmaking, like we'll put out preview videos and then we're encouraging them to watch the full episode here. Like I think a lot of times copy helps to provide some direction when people have watched your video, have been moved by your video and don't know what to do next. Like whether it is to go to the website or comment or engage or whatever, like they've been like touched by whatever powerful moving video you put out there and now they're lost. And so I think copy becomes this thing that either, like I said, provides context and more information or just kind of adds something, that you can kind of explain to your audience, like what to do after they've seen the video. So, yeah.
I love that too because the calls to action in copy are so important, but because your video can do so much, but you have to supplement that with either on-screen copy or spoken copy. And, I'm not just saying that as someone who does the voiceover work.
Yeah. I also think copy.
Go ahead. Sorry about that.
I think copy also gives you the space to like tease what's in the video, so like people can decide whether or not they'd be interested in it. And I think copy is also really powerful when you're talking about accessibility too, and closed captions and subtitles, so that really it's accessible for anyone that is watching your video.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a really great point. I definitely was just thinking about the accessibility piece because that comes up a lot, like in conversations that I've had with people. But also, too, I think copy is an opportunity to kind of just show your relationship to your audience. Like I think a lot of times people forget that, especially if you're creating, I'll just use an example. Like let's say you want to try out new content or like you want to put out a video that may be a little different than what some of the past videos have been, or you're just trying something new. Your copy allowed you to be a little bit more conversational with your audience. And I think that it either allows, you to connect to them and explain like, hey, we're trying something new, this, and this, or it just helps to like, the language helps to resonate with people in the way that that works best when the video may catch them by surprise. And so I think in general, like, videos kind of stand on their own, but I think copy is almost, if you think about it as like your conversation with people, like, hey, look at this, we're friends, you can trust me. Like I think copy helps to like solidify that relationship a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, on behalf of Olivia and I, thank you so much for joining us today, Sierra. This has been so much fun. I've learned a ton. This has been amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you guys. Like I said, I'm really glad that I was able to just share some of my experience. Like I think in general, doing social media for filmmakers, it has been a whole new avenue. And I think a lot of people who do marketing in general, like it's a little bit sometimes of a different process working with filmmakers who are really centered on video and that's what they do full time. And I think through that, you learn just kind of the power of storytelling and how stories can really move people. And I think digital and social media is just a really great platform to kind of see some of that change happen and see some of that dialogue occur. So I love what I do and I'm happy that I'm able to like share some of like the things that I've learned along the way.
Yeah, I'm glad you were too. Thank you so much again. And thanks to all of you for watching. We really appreciate your time coming out here and checking out our video.
We'll be back next month on September 25th to talk about B2B basics with LinkedIn. And so if you want to learn more about the Twitter chat, you can find us at SproutChat or tweet us using the hashtag.
You can also join the conversation on Facebook. Our group is titled #SproutChat, and we'll see you next month.